Hello.
Welcome to the Bible Study Girl podcast. My name is Sarita, but you may know me as Bible Study Girl. And the first voice you heard was the executive producer of this podcast, Bible Study Brother.
It is I, Bible Study Brother, but I'm also known as Icarus Gray over at Gray Area Anime. But this is the most wonderful podcast of your day. Soundtrack to just life, gray matter. Go search Icarus Gray Matter with appearances from Bible Study Girl, Bible Study Mama, and my brother. So go check that out.
Cool. Glad that you have the opportunity to give yourself a shout out. You know what I'm saying? Are you going to shout that album out until you come out with the next one?
Probably.
Okay.
But
just wondering.
Dog, I also forgot to shout out something that's way more important than that.
What?
In the description, y'all need to go subscribe to the Bible Study Girl YouTube page because we got so much dope content for you. And if you don't get all the way through this podcast, you might not know that we have a YouTube page that is flourishing and growing, and like God is moving. So come join the train, man.
Speaking of trains, this is a tangent. You got me on the train, but you know, when the cousins go out, usually I stay home with the children to babysit. And so I was there with the two littles this weekend. And you know, I like to sit on the floor. I'm a floor girl. So I was laying on the floor on my tummy. So the two littles get on my back. And the biggest one of the two littles says, "Choo choo, it's a train." I was like, first of all, I'm not a train, I'm a person. He was like, "Get up, get moving." So you saying get on the train just made me think of that.
I feel like I can guess which little it was.
Yeah, no, but both of the little ones were on me, and the one on top of the littlest one was like, "Cheese." I'll have to send you the video. Like, so, it was a whole thing because I was like, "No, for real, guys, like, get off of me." And there was like, "No, like, this is what you're here for."
Bruh, not this is what you're here for. I
So,
cannot.
yeah. In two ways, brother. You know, it don't take much to get me off on a tangent. We are getting ready to close out the first part of our exploration of the book Boundaries. The book Boundaries was written by Dr. Henry Cloud and Dr. John Townsend, and Bible Study Brother and I have been giving you a breakdown of the chapters as we read them. They are not it's not a point by point, bullet by bullet of the chapters. It's really like the big things that we get from the chapter. And we kind of let you guys in on how we're feeling. And it's a great opportunity for us to explore boundaries and how they function in our own personal lives. And so hopefully you've been getting help from this exploration with us, this dive into what a healthy boundary looks like. So we hope it's been helping you. I don't know about you, brother, but I'm glad that we are getting ready to close the door on the first part of this book.
Yeah. Because I'm doing a lot of exploration, which I think is good and necessary, and I'm kind of ready to move into the healing of these things and just kind of see where the book takes you in terms of like, hey, it's okay. Let's keep going. And it's done pretty good so far. So I can't wait to see what's up next.
Well, I was going to say, part one is just really all about what are boundaries. And then you get into the specifics of boundary conflicts in part two. So after we discuss chapter 6 today, we're going to kind of do just like a brief overview of the things that we've learned, or the high points, I guess, that we took away from this first part of the book. And then the next episode you guys hear from us will be a break from this, because you deserve a break and we do too. We are not always about digging like my brother said. We do want to get to healing and having a good time and having a fun time. So yes, we do hit on the heavy topics, but listen, this is life over here, and we're living it. So let's dive into chapter 6. Chapter 6 is entitled Common Boundary Myths. And they do a good job of breaking down different misconceptions people have when they hear the word boundaries, when they think about what it would take to establish a boundary. And they really do, they use biblical examples to help you see why these beliefs you may have are really myths. They're not true. So let's dig a little deeper. First question, brother, for you is, how do you personally define selfishness?
In regards to boundaries or just in general?
Just in general, what is selfishness to you?
Well, given the pretext of the book, it would be like anytime I'm thinking of self. Like that would be my definition. Like no matter what it was, if I'm thinking about me, I'm being selfish.
Right. Or I think for me, it's just putting my needs above others at any time. That's selfish to me. And um I think this book has helped me to restructure what selfishness truly is, what selfishness looks like. Um, but I know I had a warped perception of what was selfish, and we'll get into that, I think, when I talk about the top myths that like are in my life. So do you think that boundaries are selfish?
Um, Given how I used to think of selfishness, I used to, because especially like when you would set a boundary and someone would have an opinion or a reaction to set boundary,
Mm-hmm.
that would then mentally emphasize a selfishness that necessarily may or may not have been there. So they were very together in the sense that it's like, if I set a boundary but you thought it was selfish, then I must be being selfish.
I think two things can be true at the same time. I think of course, definitely you can have boundaries that are selfish. And you can have boundaries that are not selfish and they're just healthy, but other people perceive them to be selfish because they don't serve that person's purpose, or,
Yeah.
it's not meeting that person's need.
Yeah.
But I do believe both of those things can be true at the same time. You could have boundaries that are definitely selfish and um don't benefit other people. So I was just wondering if you
Yeah, I just never. I mean, until like reading the book, I wouldn't have thought about the difference. I just would have thought that somebody saying to me what they felt was selfish, in terms of whatever they were justifying for them, made it all selfish. Therefore, like it's harder to set boundaries, because boundary from this book, boundaries are, you're going to encounter friction sometimes in setting a boundary with people, especially if that ain't their boundary. And so I just hyperbolize that to like making it seem like, even good boundaries that you need to set, if it made somebody feel away, I'm like, nope, I'm out, can't do it.
Okay. So one thing I really wanted us to do, we did this with the last chapter. We picked the things that stood out to us the most. So I want to talk about two of the myths that were discussed in the book in this chapter that you accepted as truth in your life personally. And then I kind of want you to talk about how your understanding of those myths has changed because you read this chapter. So you can start off with one myth that you accepted as truth in your life, and kind of break down how that's changed, and then I'll share one. So we're gonna do two total, but you
Okay.
can start with your one.
First was myth number 5. Boundaries mean that I am angry.
Mm-hmm.
So for the longest time, like especially when I was younger, like I had a hair trigger in terms of, if you said something that offended me or I didn't like, I would get angry. And the environment in kids and cultural environments in terms of that was always just like, you ain't got no right to this. You ain't got no right to be angry about whatever it was. And even in disagreements with my trinity of people, there was far and few times where if I was angry about something, it was okay, or not just like laughed at or whatever the case may be, like you tripping, da 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 da. So like when it got to talking about, anger is like a defense and it's telling you to like stand on a boundary or move forward or whatever, like it was hard because a lot of times whatever my stuff will be filtered through if the two people who were most important to me thought it was valid or not. And if you didn't think it was valid, you gonna act on it. And therefore now instead of like I'm trying to stand on it, but it's like what, and then you just end up in a place of perpetual anger or whatever the case may be, because you didn't like work through it to the solution and everything from what the book was saying. But yeah, like anger was the huge thing for me in terms of like kind of realizing what it was, like why I was angry so much, because I was trying to set a boundary. And then like, even though I'm saying things that are saying like, hey, this hurts me, I don't like this is making me mad, instead of whatever, it's just like, oh, you tripping. And
Right.
so I just internalized a lot of that, and then like just go straight into, like I was telling you before the podcast, then I could just go straight into compliance, because it's like, well, obviously there's something wrong with me. And I know how much that has like been a pitfall for me, especially when dealing with stuff where I'm trying to set boundaries. I just get angry immediately because then I'm thinking about every other time that I wasn't able to do whatever. So
Right. And every other time that your boundaries, whatever they were, weren't respected.
yeah.
Okay, so I think the number one myth that I operated from previously, before getting any kind of therapy, is that if I set boundaries, I'm being selfish. And that's why I asked you what selfishness looks like for you, what you think selfishness is, because that's been a big thing for me. I think part of it is because I do have a love for people and I want to be a help. And so me telling other people no felt like I wasn't being loving. I wasn't being giving. I wasn't doing everything I could for somebody else. And it took prayer and Jesus and therapy and reading this book and doing all other kinds of work to help me realize that boundaries are not selfish. Boundaries are actually very helpful. I keep going back to the analogy of the fact that we are I like I keep saying this, but it's true. I like practical things, right?
Mm-hmm.
We have our knapsacks. That's our personal responsibility, the things that we're responsible for. And then we have those boulders, those things that are too heavy for us to carry on our own. Our knapsack is our personal responsibility, our daily load. Um, and God tells us his grace is sufficient to help us in any area of our lives. And for so much of my life and for in so many different instances, I was helping people with daily loads, things that were their responsibility. And there were things that I took upon myself that I didn't have to take upon myself because I didn't want to be selfish. I just want to help. I want to help you. I want to help you. I want to help you. But when you do that constantly, you're carrying your daily load, your knapsack, and then I'm grabbing everybody else's. And eventually you get worn down. And I was worn down. I was frustrated. I was angry. I didn't understand all that stuff. And so setting boundaries for me freed up my hands, right, to take care of my own daily load, my own responsibility, my knapsack, the things that God has given to me personally to take care of. But it also gave me the capacity to help people with those boulders, those bigger things in life, those unexpected situations and circumstances that come along, and not be overwhelmed. And I really had to sit and realize me taking care of my responsibilities is not selfish. It's actually good stewardship.
Right.
Um, and I think part of it for me though is that helping other people meets a need for me because I
Mm-hmm.
want to feel helpful. I want to feel needed. I want to feel like I'm contributing something to society. And sometimes when you're just taking care of your daily load and your knapsack, you don't feel like you're contributing to the community as a whole. But there's a reason that God gives us all personal responsibilities and things He personally wants us to do. It's because He purposed us for it. He created us for specific things and specific gifts and specific talents. So I really did have to do a lot of work to deconstruct the fact that setting boundaries is not selfish, it's healthy, it's stewardship, it's good stewardship of your time and your
Mm-hmm.
resources that God has provided for you. That was not an overnight process. It's something I continue to work through. I'm in a much better place with that, but it is something that I continue to struggle with. So that was my first one. What was your other common boundary myth that you accepted as true?
So this one was difficult to kind of pick because there were a couple, but the one I
Hmm.
keep drawing back to, and I actually think I missed the page. I think I missed number 7, but that's neither here nor there at this point. But myth number 8: boundaries are permanent, and I'm afraid of burning my bridges.
Woo, that's a good one.
So like that coming from, like I tell you all the time, like I was real scared of that because of you. Most times because you got that cutoff spirit.
My
And
cutoff spirit is strong. And I'm going to say this. Now, I'm not one to often set boundaries, which causes me to get hurt a lot, a lot, a lot, a lot. And then
mhm.
finally, like, when I feel like somebody's in their Mortal Kombat finish her stage, then I put up the hugest boundary and you can't come back in. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? So go ahead.
So that was a huge thing for me, but also thinking about it with people. So like when I needed to set certain boundaries or things or tell somebody stuff I didn't like, I wouldn't, because of the biggest fear that I said that was created by knowing that you have that strong cutoff spirit. I never wanted people to cut me off. I never wanted to set something and be separate from whoever it was because, and that's again, it goes back to the anger. So I'm stuck in a cycle of being angry and getting mad because I'm trying to set a boundary, but it's like, well, dang, if I set this boundary with these two people, they're not gonna, they won't love me anymore. They won't be around
Right.
anymore. They won't care anymore. And that was a strong fear spiritually. And it's like, well, dang, my connection to God is about to go out the window because, in terms of, oh no, it wasn't that one. Oh man, I can't remember which one it was. I'm gonna have to look through and try and find it. But the one I was thinking about, he was talking about a myth of like, and it might have been that one. I can't remember. But anyway, so the example was talking about finding your happiness like in somebody and then not realizing that you need to set that boundary. I think it was when me being rejected helps others or something like that. I think there might have been like 6, I think. Neither here nor there. I'm gonna stick with the one I picked. But yeah, so in like thinking about it in a realistic sense, like as they explained it, you can set boundaries, and if somebody respects what it is that you got going on, well, hey, now we can have a conversation
Correct.
because
That was
you respect what I got going on. And so, like thinking about that and like I said, those two conflicting issues of like, I'm gonna give you the opportunity to respect what I got going on. If you do, then we can have a conversation. And because I control my boundaries and they can change and they ebb and flow, you know, give me a reason that says, okay, we can talk about this. If not, then I gotta be okay with, you know, setting this boundary being not so much forever permanent, but at least permanent for now because we're not in that place.
right. They talk about in the book being afraid of being rejected by the people you love. Um, because they might not want to fool with you if you set a healthy boundary. But like you said, if they truly respect you and they love you, they will learn to respect your boundary. And when I read that part of the book, it made me think about some of the blowback I've gotten from people when I set boundaries that really are healthy. It's not me being mean, coming from a place of evil intent, but just, hey, that's not going to work for me. Ultimately, people get over it. They do accept it because that's what's going to work for me. But
Mm-hmm.
it is scary. It is scary to think that you could lose relationship with people if you tell them, I'm not comfortable with that, or that doesn't work for me. So that's something real. But I think I'm a witness. And I will say, I think, like, when I started therapy and I was going through this book with my therapist and we were talking about establishing healthy boundaries, that's a concern I had as well, because y'all are my people, right?
Mm-hmm.
But y'all were crossing lines that were making me angry.
Mm-hmm.
And,
Same.
I just, I
Same.
just,
Same. Exact
I
same.
just, right. I'm just saying, I just was not in a good place. So I did have a concern, if I do this, then they just not gonna want to fool with me. Well, that's not what happened.
You know,
You
and
adjusted.
yeah, we all set up because the thing was, and what's crazy about
And
it.
it's not like I'm gonna be clear about this. It's not like I sat down with them and had a formal meeting and said, "Hey guys, I'm establishing boundaries. What you're not gonna do is X, Y, Z." I just said, "Oh no, I don't like that."
Yeah, and but I mean, I think that's the thing about God and that time frame is we were all doing that because we were at a point to where we needed to or we were not going to survive. For it, well, at least for us. I mean, I can't speak for mom, but I know I can speak for at least the situations of knowing what boundaries were being set, when and where. And more so, I just direct it to me because I don't want to speak for anybody. But I know for me at that time, like I had boundaries I know I needed to set, and had to stand on it. Had to stand on whatever it was, and that was rough because it was like, well, I don't know what's gonna happen on the other side of this, but if I don't, then how can I reasonably be who I'm supposed to be or step out to where I need to be?
So I know you're specifically discussing our fight, but I'm talking about my discussions with my
No, no,
therapist
no, no,
long.
no. I knew what you meant, but I was saying I was just talking about like time frame wise in terms of thinking about like us and building these boundaries and how pivotal
Right. It's
because
it's
it's
been a
just it kind of just boiled over is more so what I'm saying, and then we just kind of had to, you know,
it's been a progression
yeah,
of boundaries and establishing healthy boundaries. And I think our fight is a great example of what happens when you have unhealthy boundaries for a real long time.
mm-hmm.
Uh, it is not pretty, it's not cute, it's not fun. And I'm thankful now that after we had the explosion, that we've been able to rebuild and establish more healthy boundaries. Are they perfect? Absolutely not. They're definitely can improve, but I think we are collectively as a trio in a much better place.
Yeah, and the biggest thing in the book that I was like, especially during the angry portion or whatever, it's just like when you set boundaries, you get angry less, and I'm
That is true.
like. And I'm like, it's such a real thing because I am getting way less angry in regards to situations of like stuff that would have like just sent me off the edge in between us, like, and trying to like be better with like communicating it or whatever the case may be. But that's something that came from this is my boundary. I just want to make this clear. I've never, I don't think I said it the way I wanted to say it, and I'm going to say it this way now because, a verse, a sermon, or something made this more clear to me what it was I was trying to say.
Right. And I also, like I said, I like for stuff to be practical. Like, we not sit down and say, "Hey guys, I didn't the boundaries book, talking about y'all in therapy intensively. And these are the steps that my therapist and I have decided would be beneficial for our relationship. It was definitely just relational, living life with them. And, when instances came up, like, yeah, I would be more comfortable if we do this, blah, 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 and not coming from a place of anger or confrontation and then having to repeat it. It wasn't a one-time thing. Like, because we had lived life for so long in an unhealthy way, it's something that has to be repeated over and over and over and over and over and over again. So it takes commitment and repetition. Let me talk about my other boundary myth, and we've kind of been talking about it. The other boundary myth that stood out for me is that if I set boundaries, I will hurt others. That was something that I talked about extensively in therapy. Like I said, I am a giver, giver, giver. My mama is a giver, giver, giver. So what happens when I have to tell her, no, I can't do that? And not necessarily have an explanation. Like everything doesn't have an explanation, but just no, I don't. That's not it, Um,
Yeah, also,
do you
I
think,
am
do
a
you think
giver,
you've
giver,
been
giver. Huh?
Do you think I do you think you've been hurt by some of my boundaries?
Mm, not so much the boundaries, but it's just like it gets so abrupt, and a lot of times it's in things that appear selfish. Not so much that it's like I was asking you for something, but it's
Right.
more like, well, dang, you just did this to me 20 different times, but you don't want that for you. Okay, cool. I guess. Like I see, like that would be more of my anger. It wasn't so much that it's like, oh, you can't do it. Like prime hypothetical example. Y'all know I get the most serious about hypotheticals because I'm always thinking about mindsets. It don't care. Like the hypothetical
Let me
itself ain't got nothing to do with that. Huh?
You cannot talk hypotheticals Bible study, brother.
Nah.
We literally stopped talking for 6 months because of hypothetical situation.
But again, it's just because but that's also a misunderstanding of boundaries, but also like I said, it's just the mindset thing. But that was one of them things where I'm like, oh, that's what you think of me.
It
Like,
was beyond the hypothetical situation, but it literally started because we were at
yeah.
the Chinese restaurant talking about a hypothetical situation. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's where we were. But yeah, overall, I think like so it's never like I've never felt like hurt, but like that mindset of what that meant hurt because it was like I said to you before, it was like prove yourself to me, fun. So like it was all the stuff that I have no knowledge of. Prove yourself to me first, and I was like, that's okay. That's a little disrespectful because I would not do that in regards to if I was in the same position. But that's also a boundary for you. Like, no, you don't understand anything about it. So then it's either impressed upon me to explain this stuff to you and then deal with however that is, or just move on and be like, well, I would not look for an investment from you in regards to this because that ain't how it's gonna work. So yeah, stuff like that in terms of like the mindset of like how that works or how that would play out, it would be where I was hurt like incorrectly.
I think I cut you off. I don't know what you were. Okay. So let's do a quick wrap up and a review. What
Okay.
have you decided to do personally as a result of everything we've talked about in part one of this book, chapters 1 through 6? Is there any one thing that you've taken away from chapter 1 through 6 that you're like, oh, applying this to my life? I'm using this. This is going with me.
Marriage wise, being very clear about my boundaries in terms of our like marital boundaries that I have in regards to our marriage, in regards to like our families. Because often like at the beginning of your marriage you can be very malleable to what everybody outside of your marriage wants versus what is our foundation, what are we standing on, what are the things that we need to get to that next step for us. So when thinking about the anger, when thinking about these different myths, when thinking about the different laws and the different types of people, recognizing, realizing how I need to grow, how I need to be better, things I need to clearly state and stand on, regardless of whether it makes people feel happy, comfortable, or not. But knowing spiritually, this is what we have to do, and people are not respectful of this, and kind of carrying that and walking forward. It's what I've gained from the book. I mean, it's hard, and it's gonna be hard in a lot of different places, especially given where we're going next in terms of like starting our own family for real, for real. So yeah.
So that is definitely, that's not a decision you came to yourself. You and your wife discussed, correct? You didn't come with your man.
Well, no. Well, I'm just saying, like, we are going to discuss them. I'm just saying, like,
Okay,
that for me is a
got
thing that I want to do moving forward because I know
got
it's imperative because I was not clear on my boundaries in a lot of different places, and therefore, whatever the ramifications of that were, we both had to incur and endure, and it's not on her to understand something that I didn't make clear.
Got it. We talked about that in one of the chapters. I think for me, like I said, it's the little things, it's the simple things that really stick with me. It's the practical things.
Mm,
So from chapter 1 through 6, I think for me, the most profound, and I've already discussed it today, but I'm going to discuss it again. It's the difference between your knapsack, which is your daily load, your personal responsibility, and then
mm,
that boulder, those things that come in life that are unexpected that you can't handle on your own, and you don't have to handle it on your own. That's what community is for. And that's why people are there to help you. So I think I keep that in the forefront of my mind. And also the analogy of the fact that we live in a community, right? But I'm
mm.
responsible for my personal property. That's the analogy. What goes on in my house. Yes, you can come in, you can come out. Another thing you talked about, you talked about how boundaries don't always have to be permanent.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something my therapist and I discuss frequently. Like, there are some people in my life that I struggle maintaining relationship with because they're abusive to me, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so we talk about, like, this boundary does not have to be permanent. They can prove to be trustworthy people, safe people. So every boundary you establish doesn't have to be permanent. Like right now, I'm in a definite money crunch, cook at home,
Yeah.
like get rid of debt.
And that's not a permanent boundary because you are building towards, financial independence amongst other things.
Right. But the thing is, I won't always have to be as strict as I'm being
Yeah.
now. That's a boundary that will be able to change and flex. I'll be able to go on a vacation again eventually. This is not a permanent no vacation, life for me. But these are the boundaries that need to be in place at this time. So that I meant to say that earlier when you were talking about permanent boundaries, and then I got sidetracked because you know how I do. Part one has been great for me.
Yeah.
Talking about boundaries, breaking down boundaries, breaking boundary myths.
I got one
Really,
more.
go ahead.
I just thought about it. I got one more. And the biggest thing is that dang chapter 4, man. Like,
Chapter 4 did it too.
but settling into the fact that it's like, I will create healthy boundaries with my children. And I will allow them to know their boundaries and have that power of no, where it's like, it's incredibly difficult, I think, within our community and our culture for like kids to have the power to say no. And like, even if it's under the, like, yeah, there are things I respect your boundary and you might not like doing this, whether it's like washing dishes or something like that, but you still got to do it. I respect
Right.
you, like, so learning that or trying to learn that and prayerfully learning that spiritually on the front end is going to help me dealing with, all these different transitions because I want to be the best father. I want to have the best relationship with God, but I want to show that to my kids so that way they understand setting of boundaries, being protected, and being able to like not be broken by people who don't respect boundaries, because this world kind of teaches us to not respect boundaries.
That is so very true. And you can become so complacent and compliant. I can just speak as a survivor of childhood sexual abuse. The power of no is super important, and giving your children the tools to say no. This is my body. You cannot touch me. Like that's not. We're not doing it. So I think that's important. That's important as a parent to pour into your little ones.
Yeah.
Anyways, I'm all done with chapter 1 through 6. I don't know about you, but I do need a break from the book. I need a
Yeah,
vacation.
a bit of time, because there's a lot of, like I said, there's a lot of reconstructing and actual working through different things. Like I said, that anger one was a big, like, because I was like, that, that rings so true. Like, because it's immediately when I was reading it, I just thought about every time where I was like saying, hey, I don't like this, and I'm getting laughed at. And I'm like going in, like, it is literally like going insane. And it's like, whatever it was. And like, yeah, there are times where it's like, okay. And see, I'm doing it now. I'm going into a compliance thing where it's like, well, this was okay because this was happening, and and it's like, no, it just wasn't cool. Like, it could have been in a different way. And like, instead of antagonizing my anger, just kind of like, let's talk. Or let's work through something, or let's get by it. And that's stuff that I want to have, because I don't want that to happen. Because like I can literally, like, every time I can remember something, like I literally just felt like I was going to, like, my brain was like tearing across at the seams, because I'm getting like gaslit, because it's like whatever you're feeling is not this. And it's just like, I am literally feeling like such a intense, like, I just need to explode. I don't know what else to do.
What I think is so great, I think about we're definitely older parents than our parents were.
Mm-hmm.
We have definitely been exposed to a lot more things. We've had more time, more leisure to be concerned about mental health, wellness, and all those kinds of things. So I think it's a blessing that you get the opportunity to parent from a place with more information and more understanding. And hopefully your children won't antagonize their younger siblings like I used to antagonize you. Blah, ha, ha, ha. But there's no guarantees.
But I mean, like I said, again, I understand more now, because I'm not like, because I used to, like, the resentment was based in not understanding things you've been through.
Right.
But again, I can't get that if it's not told to me. But at the same time, there's a grace in that. There's a forgiveness in those things for everybody. And I have forgiveness for people. I didn't bring all that stuff up to be like, I ain't got no forgiveness, but it's just like, no, I forgive, because there was not an understanding. Because if we never had safe boundaries. Like, between the three of us, what boundaries were there? Where do we feel safe outside of just being with each other? And therefore, how can you form your personal boundaries when you are so codependent that a boundary seems like a separation?
100%.
So,
Very true fact, brother. But when you know better,
you do
you
better.
do better.
And God is
We
good all the time.
Yeah, we have boundaries. Our houses are still in the same neighborhood, but guess what? Every property has a fence, and you can't
Yeah.
just come over here at any time.
No.
And you don't need to just come over to my house.
Nah, I mean, ditto. Ditto. Well, it will be ditto. It's close.
But
Very close.
everybody
I already
knows.
know. I already know though. But that boundary has been set. That is a boundary that I feel like, I I make certain people recoil when I say
Right.
it, because they don't understand that I'm really like that. But it's fine.
But here's the thing, we still we all of our houses are still in the same neighborhood. We just are healthier.
Yeah.
Uh we don't just invade on folks' properties anymore.
Oh yeah. Because I
Yeah.
gotta make sure my property is good. I want my property to get the attention, and I want my landlord, the Lord of all lords, Kings, to be happy with the condition
Well,
of this
what you doing
house.
over at your house? So yeah, I'm excited. I'm glad that we're going through boundaries. We're gonna take a break, just have some lighthearted conversations. Well, they may not be lighthearted, but just have conversations to keep break it up. Break it up a little bit, guys, so you guys can get a break. And you can also use the break time to go out and get the book and start reading it for yourself and start asking yourself some of these questions and start
Yeah.
implementing some things in your life that make your life better, that make it easier for you to handle your knapsack, your daily load, your daily responsibility, and put you in a better position to help people in the community with those boulders.
Yeah,
So yeah.
and let us know down in the comments once you start reading, like, what are some things that you learned. Answer some of the questions that we've, proposed or given to one another, proposed to one another. And I just kind of want to see. I want to walk through this together, hand in hand. This ain't easy, but we're gonna do it together, and we're gonna make it. And as long as you remember that it's not you and I that preach, but we preach, you'll be good.
And until we meet again, guys, keep preaching. And you can hit us up at biblestudygirl2019 at
Oh,
gmail.com. If
and
you
the rest of the socials are down in the description. But if you would like to get in contact with us, like she just said, BibleStudyGirl2019 at gmail.com, our Facebook page, and the Instagram _ Bible Study Girl. Again, I will repeat. I will say it every week if I need to, if I must. I'm about to have to start getting on the promotion on the page. Hey, I have access to this page too. But anyway, it is what it is. So do the thing again one more time. Until we
it's
meet
you. And
again,
then I
guys.
say until we meet
Oh,
again.
well, it's not you or I that preach, sister. It's we preach. Come on.
And until we meet again, guys, keep
For
preaching.
real this time.